Ugh. Good afternoon. Let's get this sharing and going. Share to a page. Nope. That's not what I want to do. Fine then, copy link, jerkface. Politics. Paste. Yeah, we can go into Flint news and discussion as well. Pasta. Perfect. So, good morning, Flint. We'll give people a few moments to trickle on in, do your thing. Everyone comes and be's happy. I, on the other hand, have been damn near death since last time I was on. I guess I caught a flu or COVID maybe, but the test said no, so I guess it wasn't COVID. And I was down for about a week and a half. My wife is still down with it, which is why Mr. Mickey, aside from us moving venues, doesn't want to be anywhere in the same vicinity as me. The man don't like getting sick. Right. Oh, I guess that's as good as it's going to get in the beginning. So let's go ahead and start off. You guys know who I am. I'm always me. I'm always here. Okay. Sometimes here. Fridays at noon. Today I'm in my house. And we've got two decent things to talk about, neither of which is at the local level. The first one starts us off in Lansing. Actually starts us off from the beginning, at least, with Representative Pepper from Dearborn. He has written a bill, House Bill 6544, also known as the Michigan Assault Weapons Ban. Why is this important? Why do we even care about this? Well, number one, we have to break down the difference between assault weapons and your modern sporting rifle. An assault weapon is a select fire rifle that can either be semi, full auto, or 3-round burst. This is what the military uses. From the M4, M16, the Marines have all sorts of different toys that we never did, to what most people refer to as an assault weapon, which is actually a modern sporting rifle. It is a semi-automatic, only comes in city automatic, and usually in the 5.56 variety. 5.56 is actually not that large a round. It looks big and scary, but it has modular abilities that allow you to put things on to suit your needs as a shooter. It allows for more accuracy and comfort while shooting. If you're not comfortable while you're shooting, then you're not accurate. And whether you're at the range, defending your home, or what may have you, if you're not accurate, you are a threat. You are a problem. It could be to the guy in the stall next to you, whatever. And you're definitely not hitting your mark, so you're just wasting ammo. Let me scroll on down. So to them, what equates to the scary assault rifle, or at least to Representative Pepper? A pistol grip or thumb hole on the stock, Any feature capable as functioning as a protruding grip that can be held by the non-trigger hand. A folding or telescoping stock. A shroud that is attached to, or partially or completely encircles the barrel, and that permits a shooter to hold the firearm with a non-trigger hand without being burned, but excluding the slide that encloses the barrel. These are all cosmetic features. Not a single one of them has to do with the operation of the rifle. It is literally, are you putting your hand like this or like this? Are you touching the barrel? No, it is. He deems it an assault rifle. A folding or telescoping stock. All that does is it allows for people with longer arms like me to make the weapon fit our arms, or in my wife's case with her little stubby arms, make it fit her so it fits properly. Because if she's having to reach way the hell out here with her non-firing hand, she's not going to be as accurate. So whenever they do things like this, they always say there is a grace period. You'll have 1 year, in this case, to get rid of your firearm, one way or another. Sometimes through a buyback, sometimes you just go to an FFL, or you sell it off, or you move out of state. And then, in this case, they are requiring you register your firearm. Registering your firearm is actually an infringement. It goes against the Supreme Court, which has stated a state may not impose a charge for the enjoyment of a right granted by the federal Constitution. Whenever you register something, you have registration fees. Take a look at your cars. And this was put in place, once again, by the Supreme Court in the case of Murdoch v. Pennsylvania in 1943. And by fact of practice, this turns into a poor tax. Because if you cannot afford their fee for registration, you are now barred from owning this object, whether it be a vehicle, whether it be a can of soda pop, whether it be a rifle, whether it be a pack of cigarettes. If you cannot afford to register, you cannot have that. We in Flint happen to fall within a 32%, I believe my numbers were. 35.5% of the population of Flint lives underneath the poverty line. Over a third of the city. And if you cannot afford to pay, you can barely make ends meet now. And you happen to have one of these things that Representative Pepper says is terrible and horrible, then he is saying you are too poor to own it and you must now get rid of it. I'm not for a poor tax. As Mr. Mickey calls it, this is poverty pimping. And let's take a look at our demographics here once again. We are 54.04% African American. I am not, obviously. But you'll see numbers like this, higher African American percentages throughout several cities in Michigan, and those cities often happen to be lower or higher up in the rate of poverty. Detroit, Flint, Saginaw, parts of Lansing. These are the people he wants to bar from owning firearms, or at least these type of firearms. Okay, so he doesn't want certain people to own these firearms, but he's not man enough to come out and say it. These type of firearms did come into very practical use in 2020 with the lockdown protest in Lansing. Men and women from all over the state, of all different backgrounds, of all different colors, any and all religions, went to the Capitol in Lansing with these type of weapons, and they helped influence the stopping of the lockdown. The lockdown was killing our local business and infringed upon our First Amendment rights. Your First Amendment rights, not only are you allowed to speak your mind, freedom of speech, it's actually freedom of expression and freedom to gather. The lockdown said I could not go across the street to my in-laws. That's infringing upon my right to gather. They say it was a horrible and deadly disease, except now they're not. And let's face it, anytime you learn something, the government has learned about it months or years prior. So here we have at the crux of it. He says it is to reduce crime in neighborhoods of color. But let's take a look at the FBI crime statistics. All right, nationally, not just Michigan, nationally, there were 10,258 total firearm murders. This does not include suicide. This does not involve or include defensive uses. This doesn't involve negligent discharges. This is just murders and homicides. One second. Okay. Of those, 6,368 were committed with handguns of all sorts. This is semi-automatic. Hey, Shardy. This is semi-automatic, revolver, single shot, whatever type of pistol you can imagine. Over 6,368 were committed with handguns. The total numbers for rifles of all sorts, 364. Pump action, bolt action, semi-automatic, lever action, nationally. So even if a assault weapons ban nationwide were to go into place and there were no more murders of any sort with these type of rifles, you would see less than a 1% drop. This isn't about stopping crime, especially because in several areas that are high crime, such as Flint, or we can go ahead and say Detroit, you're not seeing these rifles used nearly as often. What you want, or what you see that criminals want to use, is something easily concealable that gives them the element of surprise. A pistol. This assault weapons ban will do absolutely nothing. It is a feel-good measure at best. At worst, and my absolute belief is it is just a measure of control. But we have at length spoken that the crime is rising here in Flint. Every day you read of some new murder or some carjacking, something violent that has happened in this city. Every day. My last show with Miss Wintis, we discussed a woman who was executed in a lot. And our cops aren't even the ones that responded to it. It was Michigan State Police. In these circumstances, you as a citizen of Flint, you as just a citizen, have the right to defend yourself with whatever you see fit. In my honest opinion, a rifle is the best tool for the job because it's accuracy and its ease of use. When you are firing a rifle, your offhand is where the round is going. And you intrinsically know where your offhand is pointing. It is very easy. But here we are. A man decided that because his party has taken control of the state legislature, both houses, that he is going to try to implement a gun control bill that will do absolutely nothing. But then I'd like everyone else to consider that throughout history. When you disarm a populace, that populace is then at the whims and control of its government. You can take a look at 1930s and 1940s Germany for this, or 19, I believe it's 1920s, 30s, 40s, and 50s Russia, or turn of the century China, or middle of the century Vietnam, North Korea, Laos. And for those of you who think things like this don't happen here in the United States, I'd like you to look up either Ruby Ridge, where a man with a firearms manufacturing license of FFL was approached by two ATF agents. They asked him if he would illegally modify their shotguns, knowing that he was down on his luck and financially hurting. He rebuked them twice. They finally came back after playing with his finances some. Asked him a third time. He agreed. They ambushed him, walking up to his house, and killed his son. Several days later, as he was standing outside in a standoff, he was trying to surrender. His wife walks out with him, with her newborn son, and the ATF shot her in the head, holding their child. For those of you who think, well, that's just a one-off with one family, go ahead and take a look at Wounded Knee, Second Battle of Wounded Knee, or Kent State, Trail of Tears. Anytime you have a disarmed populace and the government, any government, has a monopoly on power and has a monopoly on violence, the populace always suffers. So, I encourage everyone, write your state rep. Doesn't matter what party they are. If you have to, go ahead and link them this video. This is not only an infringement, it is a danger to us all. And anyone who thinks that rifles cause mass shootings, I do have a few props here. The first is the Remington 223 or 5.56. This is what an AR fires. This is also standard ammunition for your M16. Well, not your M16. If you have one, then we need to go to the range sometime, my friend, because I never got to fire an old musket like that. But this is what the U.S. Army uses as well, at least in terms of diameter. What actually goes through the air and exits your barrel is this. This is 0.223 of an inch. If that sounds small, that's because it is. It is actually 3/1000ths of an inch smaller than what most children in rural areas learn to shoot with, the 22. It is just a glorified up-powdered 22. But next we have the 308. This is your typical deer hunting round. This does more damage, higher velocity, and is much heavier than the 5.56 round. Let me go ahead and just break this thing out of here. This is what people hunt deer and elk with. I've heard of people trying to hunt moose with it. I haven't heard of any success. They usually use something like a 30-06 or 30-30 heavier round. Oh, come on, buddy. I had to buy the good shit for once. There we go. I mangled it quite a bit. This is 1/3 of an inch around. A few AR platforms are modified to use these. Most are not. So anyone who tells you that the 5.56 is the most dangerous round in the world is absolutely stupid. I know Michael Moore, who happens to be some sort of local celebrity around here, says they blow up inside the body. That man, either through his own vocation, cannot or will not see a battlefield, and he doesn't know what anything can do. But he does have armed security, and he does believe in arming himself. He just believes that you shouldn't be armed. Let's go ahead and take a look at this here. So, yeah. Shardy, you're saying what? Go ahead and give me a... elaborate on that a little bit. Looks like you're my only interactive viewer today, buddy. And then if we want to have a little bit more fun while you type that up, this is a rather unused round. 0.17 HMR. These little things are really cool. I enjoy the hell shooting these. Yeah, you're gonna come out. There you are. Itty bitty little thing, barely a tenth, well, almost 2/10 of an inch around. However, because the grain load in it and its size, you can shoot a 2-liter bottle with any of the 3 previous rounds and it'll just pass through, even with water inside. You hit a 2-liter bottle with this because the speed it's moving at, it causes the bottle to explode. But you don't hear anyone talking about banning a 17 HMR. And remember, your body is mostly water. And there's a beautiful thing we have called hydrostatic shock. It's a condition that we usually use to talk about with explosives. Hydro, meaning water, static, meaning it likes to stay still, and shock, meaning you just disrupted that. That is what will happen to your body if you get hit by one of these tiny little things. That's why it's really great for using on varmints such as gopher, squirrel, groundhog. Because not only will one shot typically incapacitate it, it'll do so in spectacular fashion. Excuse me. So, we've gotten the gun control part out of the way. And once again, I highly ask that you write your state reps, Cynthia Neely. And I'd be more than willing to sit down and have a nice long conversation with her about the folly of this bill. Or 68th District, 69th. Message them all. Send them this video. Because the thought that less than 1% of all violent crime in this country committed with a rifle and banning those rifles means absolutely nothing. But we've also got another topic here, and one that has been burning me up for quite a while. Congress recently passed the spending omnibus. This comes out to $1.8 trillion. I want you to sit on that number for a minute. Especially while I get my sinuses in order. All right, $1.8 trillion. You can go to any beach that you've ever been to or seen a picture of. Imagine all that sand. Now imagine $1.8 trillion in $1 bills. There are more $1 bills than there are grains of sand on that beach. That is insane. This is the largest spending bill we've ever had. Of that, we are sending 2 point something odd percent to Ukraine. We've already spent 60 odd billion on Ukraine. plus the weapons and equipment we've given them. We have sent them so many weapons that our own stockpiles are running low on things such as the Javelin missile system. And they've asked for more. And we put it into our own spending bill. This is a country whose leader has outlawed several political parties from the get-go, who supports openly the Azimov Brigade Battalion. Azimov. We don't need to know the actual back-end name, whether it's a brigade, battalion, hell, even a company. What we do need to know is these people are literal Nazis. As in, during World War II, Germans moved into the region and stayed there, raised families, and then told them the glory, whatever the hell that means, of their old Nazi regime. And these people grew up venerating them. And now we are sending them, or sending someone who supports them, money so they can be armed. No. Unfortunately, we have no say in this. Here in Michigan, I did write to Senator Gary Peters when this was going down. And I was told that only thinking of America is selfish. I did reiterate that here in Flint, our pipes aren't fixed. Our roads are broken. We have crumbling infrastructure. We have several dams failing throughout the state. We have cities with neighborhoods that look worse than Ukraine does right now. And I was told I was being selfish. I didn't see anything in this bill to facilitate spending money on our people, our infrastructure, our cities. Granted, it's really hard for me to get through this bill. It is 4,177 pages long. You could stack 3 Bibles next to it, and this bill would still be bigger. Not to mention, it was presented only a few days prior to the vote. I doubt any congressperson, whether House of Representatives or the Senate, was able to go through the entire thing piece by piece to understand where all the spending is going, except for the few people behind closed doors that wrote it. And then they were told to vote on it. But it isn't just that. Also included in this bill is $816 billion that goes to the U.S. military. I spent 11 years in the Army. I love my Army. Granted, I make fun of it a lot, and I call missing it Stockholm Syndrome. Damn cats. I call missing it Stockholm Syndrome. But at the end of the day, I love my Army. However, spending of this size, especially for the U.S. military, is ridiculous. Because that doesn't go to your soldiers or your current equipment. A very small portion actually does. At the end of the day, it goes towards research and development of wonderful new ways of killing people around the world. Except, there's always this except at the back end, isn't there? Except most of these projects either fall flat on their face and don't get through production, such as the X-25, a 25 millimeter rifle. 25 millimeters being about the size of the microphone I'm using, or this big. This was a rifle meant for infantry to carry up and down mountains or into any combat zone and be able to fire an airburst munition that a computer in the scope would tell the actual ammunition when to explode so that anyone hiding behind cover would be wounded or killed. However, the computer failed 90% of the time at ranging. The other 10%, 5 of that, it would fail to communicate to the round. So you had just a big ass round being shot, not exploding and impacting. Well, terrific. You just made some 19-year-old kid lug a 32-pound weapon system plus its ammo all over the goddamn place for absolutely nothing. That cost us several $1 billion. Thankfully, that was cut. Then we have other such fun things. The Navy's LCS fleet, which doesn't work. It is a littoral combat ship. Basically, it is a modular combat ship that can do surface warfare, ship to ship, sub warfare, surveillance, electronics. You would remove one module, put on another module to take on a different role. However, prior to building these things, and we built a lot, I'm not talking about one or two, and see how things go, take lessons learned, and build the rest of the fleet. No, we built 20 off the damn bat. None of these systems were properly tested or to see if they would work while integrated. In the end, we had, goddamn, a fleet that cost us $60 billion of just these 20 ships to operate. Each hull costs $362 million at the point you lay the keel, not to mention the electronics and all that fun stuff. And then just to make the damn things work, the extra time that you would have to go through the coding to make sure these modules can talk to each other. And that didn't cost you regular military time. No, we're talking about military contracts. We're talking about civilians getting paid overtime to look at code. Civilians that typically get paid $30 an hour. We thankfully scrapped that fleet, and they're in the middle of decommissioning them. We have gone back to a frigate fleet. Then we have the JSF-35. JSF-35 is a fighter aircraft, joint strike fighter aircraft. It is meant to replace the F-16, F-15, F-18, F-22, and A-10 Thunderbolt. It underperforms every single one of those aircraft in their given field. However, since we have already spent $398 billion on the damn thing, we have to use it now. We've actually been selling them off piecemeal to third world countries. So, as we are spending $50.4 billion on Ukraine, and then we are spending $816 billion on our military, I can tell you, absolute certainty in my heart, there is only one winner in the conflicts that we are actually supporting, and that is the military-industrial complex. I'm talking Raytheon, I'm talking Halliburton. Because while even small arms manufacturers like Fabrique Nationale, like Colt, are making a killing off of selling just small arms to Ukraine, it's the missile systems that Halliburton puts together that we are now having to buy double of, enough to refill our own stocks and then enough to send to Ukraine, and then Ukraine is also buying with the money that we just sent them. Zelensky is making a killing here, and the reason I say that is because several of the weapons we sent over there were signed off on, yes, received in Ukraine, and then ambassadors to the United Nations have recently come up and said, yes, America, the weapon systems that you're sending to Ukraine are showing up in Africa. I believe Chad, the Congo, places where recent genocides have happened and or still happening. No wonder Russia wanted their arms dealer back. We were outperforming them. And then it goes on even further. Last count I saw, over 30-something people had died in northern New York, thanks to the nasty winter storm we had. A big part of that is New York is completely or near completely transitioned to green energy. I like green energy. I like the idea of renewables. However, they have to work year round. If you have a wind turbine and it freezes up, it's not producing power. Honestly, it's going to try to spin and catch fire. Also, it's not even all that green because of how much oil and lubricant and transmission fluid you have to use on it. But low it be for me to say anything. Or solar panels that don't generate energy if they're covered in snow. So what do you have? You have homes that can't be heated. You have people losing power, going out to their cars, trying to keep warm. The car runs out of fuel. Over 30 people died. That's a damn tragedy. And I do not think that had there not been such a huge push toward these power sources before they were ready to be implemented in a year-round scale, that as many would have died. But that's just my personal belief. But we are throwing $46.5 billion into green energy, and this isn't just research. This is actual building of more turbines and of more solar panel fields that during the winter turn absolutely useless. And living here in Michigan, now Line 5 will more than likely be shut down. I thought for a moment, you know what? Many of us here are safe. We use natural gas, except natural gas is about to go up. So now you're either going to have to pay an arm and a leg for the luxury of staying warm, or if you can't afford it, you're going to have to take the chance of freezing because the infrastructure cannot support you. So how does all this affect Flint? Well, number one, the green energy, as I just described. But the money going to Ukraine or the military-industrial complex, how does that affect you? Number one, taxes. Always taxes. They are spending $1.8 trillion. Our national GDP for 2021 was 23 trillion. Okay. That is 1/12 of our total GDP. 1/12. That isn't money that's in the treasury. That is exactly what the country is worth in terms of our production capabilities. So, how do we afford it then? Actually, it's pretty damn simple. The way we afford it is we print up more money. And when you print more money, the money you currently have is less. The money you currently have is actually worth less. But they've already spent it. They got what they wanted out of it. You just have to deal with the damn consequences. So now you have to pay higher taxes with money that is worth less. And then lastly, since it is worth less and inflation goes through the roof, anything you're currently paying on or trying to pay on with credit also raises in price. And they expect you to swallow this bitter pill. Both houses of Congress have already passed it. President Joe Biden is expected to sign it. And I can't help but to be disappointed and disgusted in my fellow Republicans, at least 17 of them, that didn't even put up a fight. Because they just sold my children's future, your children's future, your nieces, your nephews, your grandchildren, for absolutely nothing. To make friends with a dictator and tyrant in Europe, to continually fund their best buds who produce weapons in the United States, and these senators and Congress people will catch jobs working for them afterward as a reward. They will be financially secure, comfortable, and safe for the rest of their lives, while you and I get to scrape by for a living. Who here wanted to retire by the age of 60? Go ahead and throw that out the window. Because I have never in my life seen an omnibus yearly spending bill go down from the previous year. I fully expect next year to be something like 2.4 trillion. and it goes into the same cycle. And it isn't even just these large things. There was, from last year, an actual government-funded research to see if Thanos, the Marvel character, could snap his fingers with the gauntlet. That cost us 6 digits, $165,000. Or, in the current bill, they want to implement population control in third world countries where biodiversity is being affected by humans. So we're going to send them contraceptives. We are going to help them not have as many children. How condescending is that? And we've already gone over them wanting to remove certain ways for you to protect yourself, but how else does that affect you? Well, since everything is going to have to be reported to the Michigan State Police, Michigan State Police are now going to have more personnel to handle either the confiscations or the paperwork, keep track of the paperwork, and keep track of the database. Which means your state taxes are about to go up as well. Just for someone's tiny little pet project that will do absolutely nothing. You won't be safer. You can't tell I'm a little peeved by some of this. At least I don't think you guys can. I might be quite upset on a lot of this. Oh, it might have helped if I had my notes down and I could actually read the chat. My bad, guys. I happen to disagree with Jon Snow. Gun control is actually very large in America. We have over 10,000 laws on the books. From federal, city, and state levels, there are over 10,000 laws on the books. And if gun control actually fucking worked, you wouldn't see hardly any murders. Unfortunately, you see that as absolutely backwards and different. That was majority of my show, actually. It goes a lot faster without me bouncing things off Miss Wintus. But I'm open to take some questions if you guys want. Well, in that case, Mr. Mickey?
Want me to give you another 5 minutes, Trevor?
5 minutes? Yeah, I can come up with things for 5 minutes.
Go ahead. If you wanted me to end it, just all you do is say it. I was just sitting over here working on some intros.
Nah. Give me that 5 minutes. Just remind me. So.
Gotcha.
We've also got more gun control in that omnibus bill. But it isn't actual full-on gun control. ATF just received a 14.1% budget increase to facilitate Biden's pipe dream of a pistol ban. And no, I'm not talking about his son. We're not talking about crack pipes at the moment. A 50% increase for the ATF's NTC budget. This helps maintain a database that they've been holding on to for years that they recently admitted to. This database is a record of every gun owner in the country for certain types of firearms, which has once again been shot down by the Supreme Court and federal courts. They are not allowed to have this. They do. $700 million in funding available to influence states to pass red flag laws. Red flag being if you see your neighbor owns a firearm and you don't feel comfortable with it, you call the cops, they come confiscate the gun, and then your neighbor has to go to court to prove that he is not a threat. Here's the fun part. That is the exact opposite of due process. But because someone owns a firearm, they are not entitled to the same constitutional rights as you are. directing VA medical centers to utilize confiscation orders on veterans. And people wondered why I took a little bit of offense to Mr. R asking if we need to go to the VA. They aren't looking out for your veterans' best interest. Funding for VA to maintain gun storage maps to keep tabs on where veterans keep guns. New additional compensation for families of deceased ATF agents. ATF agents don't die very often in the field. And why are we paying them more than, say, our FBI agents, who I also don't like, but at least they serve a function? Tracking down kidnappings, bank robbers, murderers, serial killers. Hell, the DC sniper. Oh, there's portions of this bill that tell the CDC, Center for Disease Control, who for some reason have been tracking gun deaths. I didn't know that one of these was akin to a disease, but they've been tracking gun deaths. They are now no longer allowed to keep track of defensive gun uses and legal gun uses that end up in a death. Weird. It almost seems like they want to control the information that comes to you, comes to me, comes to any of us. Oh, wait, they do. When they decided to influence Facebook prior to the 2020 and 2022 elections. And they decided to say what should be on Facebook or Twitter. Actually, Twitter, new owner Elon Musk, has been releasing transcripts, records, and emails back and forth between the federal government / FBI and campaigns, as well as Twitter, where the Hunter Biden laptop story, where not only does he have videos of him interacting with minors in an inappropriate way or using hardcore drugs recreationally, it also has stored emails of pay to play. In other words, back when Biden was the vice president, he would charge other leaders of the world a percentage to meet his father. And then there are records of him, we'll say, using his father's influence to catch a very profitable job in an oil firm that happens to be in Ukraine, of all places. Very strange. Number 11 on the omnibus gun grab is anti-gun community violence intervention initiatives. I'm actually with that one. If we can talk to young men and women to hashing their problems out without violence, I am all for it. However, I don't think the federal government should be stepping in on my backyard, because everything they touch inevitably burns. And then they want to do research into people like me, because according to them, I am a violent anti-government idealist and domestic radical. I'm not radical. I just want to be left the hell alone. I didn't realize that this was a radical train of thought. Who knew? And as I am able to, over the next few weeks, because let's face it, reading 4,000 odd pages is not going to be an overnight endeavor. I will bring more and more of this to your attention. However, it'll already be law by then. There's nothing you can do about it, except write your congressperson, write your senators, and let them know that you are watching and that next year you expect far better. All right, now, Mr. Mickey, let's go ahead and take me out. Mr. Mickey.
You good, Trev?
Yes, sir.
I'm about to end it, and I'll hit you in
Okay.
about 10 minutes.
All right, boss.